as Mahatma Gandhi famously said, someone asked him, what do you think of Western civilization? Mahatma Gandhi said, yes, it'll be a good idea. So, liberalism in West is a recent phenomenon. Otherwise, it was almost a dictatorship in most European countries.
Yes.
Otherwise, Hitler wouldn't have been there. Mussolini wouldn't have been there. India also had a position as a soft power.
Yes.
After all, wherever you went, it was Raj Kapoor, Devanand and Dilip Kumar.
Right.
And Indians were admired for producing such artists. Today, look at the phenomena that a recent film called Dhurandhar has become.
Yes.
Is the talk of the world. Or another film, I think it was R something. His song became the dance tune of the world. That is soft power.
Right.
So, India has many strengths, including the ability to stand on its own. Trump has put enormous pressure on India through his sanctions, unwarranted sanctions, I must add, during the last 1 year. But India has not bent. India has not said yes, like Pakistan did to his fictitious comment that he was the mediator during Operation Sindhu.
Yes. Now we are talking of a so-called great game between US and China for the battle between supremacy. And we are seeing, USA trying to annex other countries, Venezuela, Greenland and all. Is it a return of imperialism, a return of the great game?
They also fear that in the context of AI and the new technology, China might overtake America. They do fear that even in economic terms, China may surpass America, though in all these three fields, at the moment, America is ahead of China.
Hello and welcome once again to Kitabi Baatein, a podcast where we make sense of India and the world through books. I have a very special person as a guest today, a former diplomat, a commentator on international relations. Please welcome Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. Mr. Dogra, honor to have you on Kitabi Baatein.
Thank you. What a nice title, Kitabi Baatein.
Yes, sir.
No ambiguity at all.
Not at all. Thank you so much, sir. It's a special day as it's also my 75th podcast and it's an honor to have you as my guest on the 75th podcast.
Thank you. And the best wishes for further success. You already have a huge viewership. So let it cross 100,000 and then maybe 1 million.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So, sir, I remember we had a podcast 1 year back and we talked about, what's happening in the world globally in geopolitical tensions. I remember the first question I asked you last time was that, are you sensing something on the geopolitical front when you wrote the book Wartime and then followed by Autocrats? Today, yes, the world is in a state of flux. On one hand, we talk about a new world order wherein China may rule the world. And on the other hand, we are talking about geopolitical tensions worldwide. We are only seeing wars rising. Some experts say that World War III is already there. It is just that it's happening in bits and pieces. What's your reading of the geopolitical scenario today?
Well, what I did not read was that Trump would become the president for a second term. Ever since he has come, all predictions have gone wrong. But I remember very clearly our session sometime back, 1 year or 2 years back. And then I had anticipated that world will not remain the same. In fact, that is exactly the theme song of my book, Wartime. And also, my anticipation was that there'll be more and more autocrats in the world, which is the title of my most recent book.
Yes.
And the unfortunate fact is that there are a huge number of autocrats in the world, including Trump. And especially because of him, autocrats in any case do not respect the conventional wisdom or the rules of the world. Or follow the international behavior as prescribed by, let's say, United Nations.
Right.
Or also the general morality of countries behaving with each other. autocrats have self-interest as their prime thought. And Trump is a prime example of it.
Exactly.
His only concern is riches for his family, and also whatever he can grab from other countries. Greenland, for example.
Right.
Venezuela is the other example. So, world is no longer what it was when it was calm,
Yes.
when it was predictable, when things moved for the general welfare of countries and of people. That is why, since the Second World War and all the devastations, people around the world had become more prosperous. Sorry. In fact, at no point in history, the prosperity had been so widespread. But autocracy means oligarchy and benefit of the few, deprived condition for the many. Unfortunately, we are at that stage.
So the so-called rules-based international order, or the Western liberal democratic order, while many critics say that it was a Western order which happened after Second World War, but as you said, did bring prosperity to many people. Do you see that order collapsing, coming to an end? And if yes, what will it be replaced by?
Firstly, I have argument with liberal order only being identified with West.
Yes.
After all, look at India's history. Before the colonial period, of course, we suffered a lot for about 1,000 years. But pre that 1,000-year period, India's was the most liberal form of way of living. Whether it was south or north or west or east of India, the general principle was that there should be equity and there should be freedom of speech. That is why we had on the ghats of Banaras or Allahabad or Haridwar great debates. If it was not liberal, then what was it?
Correct.
So let us not please identify liberalism with West. West, as Mahatma Gandhi famously said, someone asked him, what do you think of Western civilization? Mahatma Gandhi said, yes, it will be a good idea. So liberalism in West is a recent phenomenon. Otherwise, it was almost a dictatorship in most European countries.
Yes.
Otherwise, Hitler wouldn't have been there. Mussolini wouldn't have been there. So, liberalism, let us associate with our old traditions.
Right.
As for the present status of liberalism in the world, it is at a very delicate stage,
right,
where media is not free the world over, where institutions are being constricted. So liberalism comes in when you and I are free to debate as we are doing now, but that is not happening all over the world.
Correct. So of course we are seeing a change from that order. Where do you see India in this so-called changing world order? Is India stronger than before? Is it just the same, or is India weakening its position on the world stage?
Well, there are a couple of aspects to this question. And I would say that strength of a country is multifaceted.
Yes.
Whether you measure it in terms of its economy, GDP, defense, or people's welfare, its relations with the outside world, all these contribute to the strength of a country. There was a time, especially post-independence, when we were considered the moral leaders of the world, whether it was non-aligned or campaign against racism, campaign against colonialism, and so on. India had a position in the world. India also had a position as a soft power.
Yes.
After all, wherever you went, it was Raj Kapoor, Devanand, and Dilip Kumar.
Right.
And Indians were admired for producing such artists. Today, there are different metrics, different measures of determining a country's position in the world. More countries have become self-aware, self-confident, and they want their own independent position in the world. So it is not as if you can form a bloc and become its leader in terms of carving out your position. So what do? You become an example of economic progress, which India has done remarkably.
Right.
You become an example also of soft power, which again Bollywood and the films from South have done remarkably well. Look at the phenomena that a recent film called Durandar has become.
Yes.
Is the talk of the world. Or another film, I think it was R something. His song,
RRR.
his song
Yeah.
became the dance tune of the
Yes.
world. That is soft power.
Right.
So India has many strengths, including the ability to stand on its own against pressures, for example, from America. Trump has put enormous pressure on India through his sanctions, unwarranted sanctions, I must add, during the last 1 year. But India has not bent. India has not said yes, like Pakistan did to his fictitious comment that he was the mediator during Operation Sindoor.
Yes. Correct. And I clearly remember when at the time of Mr. Bajpayee, when India conducted nuclear test, US put sanctions on us. And when India retaliated against Pakistan a couple of years back, then many Western countries came in support of India, that as a sovereign nation, India has a right to protect its borders. So we are absolutely okay with India protecting its borders and giving a befitting reply to Pakistan. So certainly that has changed. But coming back to the world situation once again, so the 20th century was marked by the great game between Britain and Russia for supremacy. And we see a lot of imperialism happening because of that. Now we are talking of a so-called great game between US and China for the battle between supremacy. And we are seeing, USA trying to annex other countries, Venezuela, Greenland and all. Is it a return of imperialism, a return of the great game?
Well, firstly, this is another point on which I will contest the term great game. The words great game was coined by a captain in British Army, about 26, 27 years old, and he was being sent to Afghanistan. And he wrote a letter back home to England saying that I am off to Afghanistan and I hope it becomes a great game. Now, he wrote unwittingly, unknowingly that those two words will become famous ever since. But the fact is that you use game for animals.
Yeah.
You're going on a shoot and you'll hope to get some big game, a tiger or whatever. Great game means misfortune for countries. Afghanistan has not recovered from 1839 when the first Anglo-Afghan war started. So I resent that we have not learned from mistakes of history and we continue to call it great game. It's a great misfortune.
Correct.
That countries should be engaging in contest over another country or to the misfortune of another country. Whatever America and China may do or may not do, it is not their right to determine the destinies of, let's say, Taiwan or Venezuela or Ukraine or some other country. So the contest between Britain and Soviet Union or Russia of the 19th century was misplaced because Russia had no intention of, creeping up to India. And Britain was just doing that. It had invented that excuse only to increase its territory. And it managed to get 40,000 square miles from the Afghan army, which I pointed out in Durand's Curse.
Yes.
So I hope that we move away from temptations like great game and we move away from an era of great development, which at the moment does not seem very likely.
Absolutely. So, but the great game or not, the fact is there is a sort of battle between US and China for supremacy. And in fact, now technology is one of the biggest areas wherein the countries are, fighting for supremacy. Given this contest between US and China and the fact that China has always been antagonistic towards India, US, the current situation, if we see, in fact, I remember earlier it was said that US warmed up to India to contain China. Unfortunately, that does not seem the case now, especially under the presidency of Mr. Trump. How do you see this situation, this rivalry? How will it affect India in the medium to long term?
America sort of swings from one extreme to the other.
Right.
Its biggest extreme was its determination that China must become great.
Yes.
So it went out of its way to pour money into China, pour industry into China, pour technology into China, and China became great. Now it has become a threat.
Yes.
Threat to America's supremacy. And many Americans fear that if there is a war between America and China, China might prevail. They also fear that in the context of AI and the new technology, China might overtake America. They do fear that even in economic terms, China may surpass America, though in all these three fields, at the moment, America is ahead of China. So, when America realized far too late that, they've created a competition for themselves, then they thought of using India as a proxy. Now, it did not mean that India got taken in by the American wish. India, yes, would welcome any support that it gets from outside in terms of investment in India. But India is no one's battering ram. India is not going to accept a role as a second fiddle to some other superpower so that it can be used to sacrifice its people and its economy and its welfare in a war which is not of its making or not of its desire.
Correct.
So there America and its hopes were misplaced. And I think slowly America has realized that that is not how you deal with India. That is how you deal with, let's say, your vassal states in Europe who do your bidding, America's bidding. But India is not of the same mold. So with the result, when they felt that India follows its own path, and hence non-alignment and so on, and wants strategic independence, then they turned cold. And Trump's sanctions are a case in point.
Yes.
But with or without America's help, India is going to become one of the powers of the world. It is not a power as yet. And your or mine saying that we become a power is not going to make a difference.
Right.
India will become a power when it is seen as such by the outside world.
Very true.
In some respects, they also feel that India's economic progress at the moment is taking it into that direction. India's defense industry, which has now started growing, is also taking it in that direction. India's investment in IT and other advanced forms of technology is also taking it in that direction. So if we continue steadily on that road, then in not too distant a future, I see India becoming the third pole in the world.
Economy.
And I hope it becomes that, because India has always had an independent existence,
Yes.
whether thousands of years back or today. And India always has had a message which is different from others in the world.
Very true. So you talked about the non-aligned movement as well, and this brings you back to the time of the independence and Pandit Nehru's foreign policies being followed. Now, non-aligned movement, it is said that it was appropriate given the situation at that time, because India had faced imperialism and all the problems associated with it. At the same time, it is said that if we talk of evolution of foreign policy, say since 1947, and the first 20 years were crucial and it was headed by Pandit Nehru, there were a lot of mistakes being made and we are paying the price of that as well today. For example, relinquishing the UN seat, Article 370, and most importantly, Pandit Nehru's misjudgment of China. So he was kind of very fascinated by China, and unfortunately China did not reciprocate. We all know what happened in 62. What's your take on that? How has the policy evolved, and what's your take on these so-called mistakes being made by Pandit Nehru?
Well, lately it has become a fashion to pick holes in Pandit Nehru's policies. In fact, my book, India's World, which sort of analyzes the policies of 8 of the 14 prime ministers we've had, has been quite critical of some of Pandit Nehru's policies, including what you have just described, be it Kashmir or 370 or Indus Waters Treaty.
Yes.
Now, I must say, when I wrote the book, Where Borders Bleed, that was my first non-fiction book, it was not considered polite to criticize Article 370 or to question the wisdom of entering into Indus Waters Agreement. But I did that. And in fact, I criticized the government of that day in succumbing to pressure and very unwisely signing on the dotted line for Indus Waters and agreeing to imposition of Article 370, despite knowing the fact that the government of the day may not like that.
Right.
But I'm glad that what I wrote then has become a reality.
Right.
Indus Waters is in suspension and Article 370 has been abrogated. In fact, talking of Pandit Nehru's mistakes, the first mistake was when he knew that Punjabis like Nawaz Sharif's family were being settled by Pakistan in POK. There was no reason for him to deny refugees, Hindu and Sikh refugees, who were being massacred and thrown out in miserable conditions from what had become Pakistan into India. But Pandit Nehru decided to impose Article 370 and deny them permission to settle in J&K. Had they been settled in J&K, the architecture of J&K would have been different. Economically, it would have been one of the most prosperous states in India, just like Punjab and Haryana are today because of the refugees. Politically, it would have paid dividends because the demographic composition would have changed. So Pandit Nehru made many mistakes, but the circumstances and the times were such that there was trauma all around.
Yes.
And decisions had to be taken in a hurry. Decisions had to be taken in the larger context of things, that he was vehemently opposed to the idea of two-nation theory, though he acceded to it. And he wanted a secular India as opposed to uni-religious Pakistan, which is what it became. The other thing was that, when you're confronted with 10 problems a day, you will go wrong in one or two. And to give benefit of doubt to Pandit Nehru, yes, he did make major mistakes, including with regard to Tibet and so on. But on the other hand, he also gave a huge push in every direction to development in India.
Of course.
Be it on the medical side like AIIMS, be it on technology side like IITs, be it with regard to atomic energy. And so many dams. Bhakra Dam is still an outstanding example of engineering. So there were many qualities to his decisions, but he's also left a permanent black mark for India to try and wipe out.
Right. So, talking of his decisions, I think Indus Water Treaty is one interesting point because it's still very much relevant. Article 370, fortunately, is history now. We did abandon it. Talking of Indus Water Treaty, and your book talks about in detail, and I must say it was an eye-opener when I read it for the first time because there are many facts I was not aware of. That was a mistake in a sense, as you said, the volume of water was not considered. We divided it, okay, western rivers you keep, eastern rivers we take. So the volume of water was not considered, and no one gave a thought about what will happen, say, when demographics, even population change, when the requirements change. So you can tell us a bit about Indus Water Treaty, what exactly went wrong, and how do you see the decision of keeping it in abeyance after Operation Sindoor?
In 1947 July, Redcliffe asked Jinnah that let us also think in terms of the waters flowing from India to Pakistan. Jinnah said, I would rather have a desert in Pakistan than accept Hindu waters. So at one point in, I think, 1948 or 49, it actually happened. India did cut off waters to Pakistan because Pakistan, as usual, was not paying. We were charging money at that time for flow of certain amount of waters. Pakistan stopped paying. It never had the desire to pay, even when it was very prosperous. So then Pakistan started, virtually pleading with India that please don't stop our waters. So that was something we could have done with all our rights and with all our ownership of the water that flows through our territory. But around late 50s, 1950s, the economic conditions started going down. From a very prosperous area, Pakistan also started going downwards economically. India, because of various problems of size and so on, and the better part economically had gone to Pakistan. And we were struggling with a virtual desert in Punjab and Haryana. So we were also in a bad situation economically. America had always been enamored of Pakistan,
yes,
for one reason or the other. America wanted this movement to be turned in favor of Pakistan and solve for once many issues, especially water issue. And interestingly, what people have not realized, and I revealed for the first time in India's World under the chapter on Nehru, that there was a very underhand trick that America deployed. In fact, two underhand tricks. One, their ambassador in Pakistan sent back a telegram to Washington saying that both Pakistan and India are facing an economic difficulty. It is time to teach Nehru lessons of international behavior and put pressure on him to finalize the waters issue. Right. That is why World Bank was brought in.
Right.
And World Bank was not an impartial go-between.
Right.
It was doing America's bidding. And Indus Waters Treaty became the most generous treaty in the world at a time when America itself was denying waters to Mexico.
Right.
Not only that, and this is what I brought out in India's World on Nehru chapter, we very foolishly, and blame goes majorly to Niranjan Gulati, who was the technical negotiator on India's behalf, but also for two others associated with it. We didn't take out the map to see that the three western rivers which you talked about, which were allocated to Pakistan, were flowing through Jammu and Kashmir. And three eastern rivers were flowing through Punjab. By signing on the dotted line on that particular fact, we were giving away the argument that Jammu and Kashmir belongs to us.
Yes.
if you're giving all the waters to Pakistan, retaining nothing for yourself, then, there is something which you're doing very wrong.
Correct.
So that was one. Second was, not only did we give those waters, nearly 75 or 80% actually,
Yes.
to Pakistan, we also gave about $60 million to Pakistan so that it could build its own canal works to take so much of water. Now that $60 million of 1960 is something like $3 or $4 billion today.
Certainly.
Not only that, we also requested America to give $1 billion additionally to Pakistan.
All for a state that was antagonistic towards, hostile towards India.
So the litany of mistakes, and of course you've already pointed out that we did not even plan for our future development,
Yes.
population growth, industrial requirement, none of this. And now, government has taken a very good step in keeping it in suspension and making its resolve to at least start using the 20% water that is our share completely. Now, here again, I contest the term our share because a sovereign country cannot give up its right. And that is exactly what we did. China does not ask you when it wants to build a dam on Brahmaputra, which will cause havoc in terms of earthquakes, in terms of disturbance of our ecology, in terms of causing financial ruin to people in Assam and so on.
Right.
So why are we so hesitant? Because if we revoke that treaty, and I hope we do revoke it at some point, the earlier the better, no one in the world can stop us. The earlier we do it, the better it is to assert our rights and our sovereignty.
Right. So this brings another interesting point. We often say, as you also mentioned, India being a soft power. That's how Indian leadership, in fact, envisaged India as a soft power. Operation Sindoor, where we gave a befitting reply to Pakistan, Indus Water Treaty, keeping it in the veins, things which we did not even imagine. 2611 was an example wherein we did not do anything. And this time we did give a befitting reply to Pakistan. Is India becoming a hard power? Are these examples of that? Or you think it's just temporary?
Well, for a long time, India was called a soft state.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because since you are mentioning terror, let me also reveal one other fact for your viewers. And I'll only give newspaper reports. So this particular report says Pakistan killed 2 Indian soldiers, dragged their dead body inside their territory for a couple of miles. The next day, Pakistan killed 3 Indian soldiers, mutilated their bodies. A few days later, Pakistan came into India, or Pakistani soldiers or whatever, mercenaries or terrorists, came into India and burnt a couple of houses in a village and so on and so forth. Do you know when did this happen? 1951.
51.
And that pattern has not changed. At that time, Pandit Nehru wrote in his diary that how long can we tolerate this? It is time that we went in there and destroyed those perpetrators. But after writing that, he did nothing.
Correct.
And for a long time, we did nothing because Pakistan's tactics did not change. It was only in 1971, from a soft state, we became an assertive state.
At the time of Bangladesh creation.
At the time of Bangladesh, and to the credit of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, she went about it, and her advisors were also extremely good. Again, something which I've described in detail in India's World. She planned it so meticulously that despite the stiff resistance from the American side and people like Kissinger and Nixon, who hated her.
Yes.
She stood her ground. She made them feel extremely frustrated and planned it in such a way that the entire Western world and the world opinion was with her and with India, including all the rock bands of that time and so on. The media was solidly with her in India and outside. And India, for once, became a hard state instead of soft state and created uniquely a country called Bangladesh,
Yes.
which the world applauded.
Yes.
Unlike Greenland ambition of Trump, where he has been reviled, hated, and despised. So we became hard state temporarily. After that, we relapsed again into the soft state status. So Operation Sindoor was certainly an assertion that we will not be taking all this lying down. As you mentioned, 26/11 was an unfortunate decision that, as usual, we dilly-dallied and wanted the people's anger to die down and then decided to do nothing.
Yes.
This despite the fact that 9/11 in America had happened earlier and America took certain decisions to assert its authority and to show that, we will attack if we are attacked. Here, we said, okay, next time maybe they will learn their lesson and not attack us.
Right.
But that did not happen.
It didn't happen.
And that is unlikely to be the course even now in future because Operation Sindoor certainly gave a big blow to Pakistani terror infrastructure, which was our limited intention.
Yes.
But Pakistani intentions have to be killed once for all.
Of course. So all in all, can you say that the foreign policy, we talked about evolution of foreign policy from the time of non-alignment, India's foreign policy is in sync with the times? Would you agree to that?
Not always and not always successfully. But overall, I think I will give fair marks to India's foreign policy. It has been consistent. Consistent in the sense that we have always tried to maintain our sovereignty and our ability to take independent decisions, regardless of which way the winds are blowing internationally. Whichever government it is, they have tried to maintain the dignity of India, the posture of India as a responsible state, and the possibility that every foreign policy decision contributes to the betterment of India. There have been phases when we have not performed to the optimum level. For example, post Sindoor, Operation Sindoor, there was some criticism that we should have been one better than Pakistan in projecting our viewpoint to the world. So that has certainly been a lapse, and there have been some others earlier also. But overall, I think Indian diplomats are considered some of the best in the world. Indian leadership is considered as responsible. So we should have reason for satisfaction.
True. So basically you can say, like earlier as you talked about Operation Sindoor and some even criticized, is India better at building narratives now? Because earlier it was dominated and as we said, we are too soft a state. So is India getting better at building and propagating their narratives? Because it is said that if you do not tell your story, others will. And that has happened many times with India. I mean, Kashmir was one example when we say, then there are many other instances, Inter-Swat Treaty for that matter, as you talked about in America's domination. Is India finally reaching that stage where it is writing its own story in its own words and not getting, feedback from others, Western countries especially?
Well, I'll be frank. I don't think we have been very successful in telling our story.
Right.
Otherwise, we would not have confused people, the world opinion, with very long explanations about what Kashmir is. Whereas Pakistan just says Kashmir is ours.
Is ours, correct. The jugular vein of Pakistan.
Similarly, Operation Sindoor, which I've already mentioned, it was not very successful in terms of telling our story. India, and it is sad. For example, had it been America, which was in 1971 and created Bangladesh, American media, American people, American politicians would have been non-stop in propagating the idea that it was America which did this.
Correct.
Just like they did after Second World War.
Right.
And it has some benefits. I don't mean in terms of, you should always make people obliged that you've done such and such for them. But they must remember, it must become a marker in their national history.
Correct.
We did not do that.
Right.
And that is why we are in the position that we are today with respect to Bangladesh.
Yes.
Bangladesh people, there are some who remember, there are some who acknowledge, but Pakistan has bounced back in Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
So we have to reflect and think, where did we go wrong?
Very true.
After all, if we can produce films like Border and Dhurandhar, they are a good asset for soft diplomacy, for soft power. So we should have encouraged post-1971 reminders like this.
Yes.
So we have failed in telling our story.
That is one area where you think we still have more work to do.
And secondly, public images remain. For example, I have read probably everything that was ever written on Pakistan, especially when I was doing Where Borders Bleed. There's a Pakistani Foreign Secretary, Sultan Ahmad, long back. So he was at that time ambassador to China, Pakistani ambassador to China. And Chow Enlai had come. So after visiting Karachi and so on, he was in Lahore and the motorcade was long. Most of the motorcade was Chinese people. And at the end was the Pakistani ambassador in a car. And at those times, because of the weather and non-air-conditioned cars, the windows were down. So the people were lined up on the road, as is often the case. And it was Punjabi atmosphere.
Yeah.
So this particular person who's lined up, he noticed all those Chinese faces, and finally this tall Sultan Ahmad. And he asked his neighbor who was standing next to him, who's he?
Okay.
Pehle to China wale the.
Right.
Ye kaun hai? He said, a chamcha.
Oh.
Now that is such a telling remark.
Yes.
Pakistan has stayed in that status ever since.
Yes.
So we have to convey a story, which you said very rightly, with multiple languages, with multiple means, and with multiple stories.
Correct. Very true. So again, coming back to, we have neighbors which are unfortunately antagonistic: Pakistan, Bangladesh, China. Yet it is said that we have friends in Russia, in Japan, even France, many people say even Australia. How do you see these relations? First of all, my question is basically, are there actually any friends when it comes to diplomacy or international relations? And if yes, can India count these countries as their friends, Russia, France and all? And how important they will be in India's journey going forward?
Well, firstly, it's such a dynamic and fluid situation today in the world that you can't say that A will be our friend forever or B will be our enemy forever. Pakistan was a hated world in America for many years.
Yes.
Today, it has become their bosom friend. Asim Munir, recently at Davos, Trump was thrilled when Shehbaz Sharif pointed out to him, see there, Asim Munir is sitting there. So, the country's interests are permanent. Foreign policy has a certain direction.
Yes.
But at the same time, you have to also take care of the winds that blow. And unfortunately, winds are blowing hot and cold in the world today. And some of these winds are dry, which means fire can happen anywhere. So India has to measure its steps very carefully, and India has to keep looking over its shoulder all the time, because China may be our enemy today, but it could be a reasonable neighbor in the years to come. Russia has been our trusted friend, but it may not be.
Right.
So to say what happens in the next year or the years that follow is difficult in the way that situation is developing in the world today.
So there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemy, the only permanent interest. If I ask you, what should be India's strategy in dealing with especially China, Pakistan and Bangladesh? Because America, as you know, in fact, situation may change if there's another president in the future. In any case, we cannot trust America blindly. But as far as China and Pakistan are concerned, we have two neighbors. They share our borders. They both are hostile towards us. China is much more powerful, and it, in a way or some way or the other, backs Pakistan. So very often we say that our real battle is not with Pakistan, but China, because China is the one which will be providing support. And it's said that if there is a war, it will be a two-front war, because China will support Pakistan. What should be India's strategy in dealing with China and Pakistan?
You should add Bangladesh to it.
Yes, Bangladesh, of course, right.
In wartime, I have done a statistical model supported by a prediction from an Australian who had done such a model for the first time, perhaps in the world. And my conclusion was that the next big war in the world, whether you call it World War or not is a different thing, would start between India and China. Now, any war that starts, and Operation Sindoor was a witness to it,
Yes.
China and Pakistan will have some kind of a cooperation. Backseat driving or front seat driving together is a different thing. So instead of a two-front war, it becomes a single-front war. We have to contend with that. And if Bangladesh also joins hand, then we have a three-front war.
Yes.
Or at least, let's say if China and Pakistan are one front, then there's a second front,
right.
China and Bangladesh. There has been some speculation about the Siliguri corridor.
Yeah.
And that Bangladesh at some point may want to try and do something there.
That's what is known as the chicken's neck.
There are two chickens' neck, one on the Pakistani side,
Right.
one on the Bangladesh, China side. So things could get very grim for India if these three countries get together in a conflict situation. So your question is very pertinent, that how do we ensure that the temperature remains at an even keel and relations have some modicum of stability. Government has already taken some steps to liberalize trade with China, to offer certain special facilities in terms of visas and investment and so on. So that is one way of reaching out. And I think the greater the trade, the greater the people-to-people relations,
Right.
because we don't have much
Yes.
Chinese coming here or Indians going there, except for trade purposes. We don't have tourism as such.
No, right.
So, unless there is knowledge of the other side, you cannot really read or develop a relationship. So that is point one. The second is at the leadership level, if there are exchanges, some of it we've already seen when there was recent SCO conference,
Yes.
where Putin, Xi and Modi were photographed shaking hands and chatting together, and it became a big buzz photo around the world, including in White House.
Yeah.
So leadership meetings provide opportunities to lower the hostility and to find ways of cooperation. So I hope that becomes a reality. As far as Pakistan is concerned, I don't see much hope because despite our efforts, including at people-to-people level and so on, despite our giving visas on a very liberal basis, the fact is that ISI exploits every such opportunity to plant sleeper agents here and so on. Secondly, we confuse their hospitality of chicken curry and butter chicken masala and so on as policy.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is a huge mistake India has made every time. The fact is that they are very sweet to talk to because they know that Indian policymakers also can get affected by sweet talk. Whereas they have hatred of India ingrained into their genes, into their body system, and they will never leave that. There are some exceptions, but they do not count very much, or even if they were to count, they will be pressurized by army to think otherwise. Religion is another factor. In fact, many Pakistanis do not even know that India has the second largest population of Muslims in the world.
Yes.
And those are as equal a citizen as any Hindu or a Sikh or a Parsi or a Christian.
Yes, yes.
So there is, despite all the films they see from India and so on, there is a portion of their brain which has been designed to block off anything that could do something positive towards India. So we have to live with the reality that we have an enemy who is structured to hate India and who's not going to be a well-wisher. Unfortunately, Bangladesh is becoming a second Pakistan for us.
Right. That's a sad reality, in fact. Bangladesh is very much like the second, especially the recent events if we see in the last 1 to 2 years. And so while talking of India's rise or its evolution of foreign policy, I think one of the key factors we need to take into account is the terrorism emanating from Pakistan. Because that is something which has defined, you can say, India-Pakistan relations. And we saw that even after Operation Sindoor, there was a bomb blast in Delhi. And while we are saying that Operation Sindoor is ongoing, but it's also an indicator that, terrorism is still very much alive. And despite the steps such as Operation Sindoor, we are not getting rid of the terror infrastructure and terror attacks anytime soon. So what's your take on that?
Well, every time a terror attack happens, we find that Pakistan has further refined its tactics. The traces do not always easily lead to Pakistan. I mean, earlier, for example, we knew exactly how 26/11 was planned.
Yes.
When the boat left Pakistan, how it left, where was the training given, how were these people, 10 people equipped and so on, where did they come from. But today the traces are difficult to find. So we made mistakes by giving dossiers of our investigations to Pakistan,
Yes.
which ISI studied very carefully and ensured that next time they will not make those mistakes and leave no traces behind. That is why the Chinese equipment and so on, in terms of rifles and bombs and so on, they also used the Nepal route quite often to push in terrorists, the hijacking, for example, of the plane. Now they are using, once again, Bangladesh.
Yes.
Because earlier, during BNP government, they had used Bangladesh and its territory for training terrorists from Northeast, for also pushing in terrorists into India. So, Pakistan has also not given up rebuilding its terror infrastructure, which we had hoped that the message of Operation Sindoor would calm it down and would, make it realize the futility of its actions. But that has not happened. So terror camps are active again. They may be a little further away from the LOC and the border, but they are active. The possibility is that there could be yet another terror attack any time. And India will have to consider very carefully as to how to respond to that. Because, starting another Operation Sindoor for every act of terror would also carries its own repercussions. That is why I think government very rightly decided that despite the serious nature of the bomb blast in India Red Fort, it thought it wise to really consider whether it needed a retaliation of the scale of Operation Sindoor. And that also, the bomb blast also is a pointer to the fact that there are inroads which ISI has made in a very significant way into India by having various cells and having, bomb blast material to the extent that was found later after the blast. The other thing is the instigation they are giving to Khalistani terrorists abroad. There are various reports which are coming in. And that again is a dangerous element. Because if your own are instigated to act against you, they merge very successfully in the local population. And it causes a double jeopardy for the state. So I think the calm is temporary. Let's hope it remains forever. But we should also be prepared for the storm.
Of course. And I think as we talked about the Dhurandhar, it was mentioned that Dushman Bahari nahi hai, andar bhi hai. And that's what unfortunately ISI and the army is, trying and targeting, because that's relatively easier for them to, achieve their targets. Another question was, we talked about US and Pakistan, China and all, is about Europe, European Union and European countries. Now, many of them seemingly have a positive, opinion towards India. So, given the fact that with US, it's not that great, and especially under the presidency of Donald Trump, it's not what we were expecting, say, about a year back or so. Do you see India growing, its trade deals and its relationships with European countries in particular?
Well, it should, because European countries as a bloc are not greatly in the picture trade-wise. Because if you look at the statistics, America, China and UAE are the three biggest trade partners of India. So compared to the size of Europe as such, it should have been in one of those positions, 1, 2 or 3. But that's not the case. So the possibilities are great, and the possibilities also for European firms to invest in India rather than in China are also tempting. But Europe today is no longer a single bloc. The Poland's foreign minister was here recently, and he did not react very positively to our request that terrorism should be treated as, terrorism affecting one country can affect other countries also. So there are different approaches, and we cannot expect a uniform level of friendship with all the countries in Europe. When Poland was being indifferent or dismissive of our concerns, Spain was very positive. So Italy is very positive. France is a good friend. But Germany was not equally warm. So we have to accept the reality that Europe is not a unified house. There are differences within themselves and with their approaches to the outside world. But yes, the larger part of Europe is keen to develop relations with India, also for its civilizational magnet.
Right. So as you said, because there are many countries and not all of us are positive towards India, not all of us are antagonistic towards India. So it's probably understanding each country's nuances and building relations accordingly, especially larger countries like France or Germany, for example. So in the current times wherein we are seeing issues with America, and we honestly don't know exactly when will situation change. So India can and should warm up. I think on 26th January, again, we have a guest, chief guest coming from Europe. So that can act as, a good partner in terms of cultural exchange or trading, and whatever we are, losing out with America, probably to some extent we can cover it through Europe.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the very fact that a large delegation of the leadership of Europe came for 26th January is symbolically important. And both sides' desire to have a quick resolution of the FTA is yet another pointer that, the relationship could go much further. And let's hope that is the direction it takes.
Of course. So the last question is, we talk about unilateralism, we talk about multilateralism with US and China, US not being that strong now or maybe in decline further in the coming future, and China, gaining ground. Is in this multilateralism, unilateralism, bilateralism should be the policy India should focus on, as you said, making better relations with different countries? Should that be the approach of our foreign policy, maintaining strong friendships, relations with different countries? Because we don't know whether it will be multilateral, whether it will be US, China, or US still, or China dominated. So do you see that as a pragmatic foreign policy for India?
Whenever there's the world is in transition or moving from one order to the other, it can also be an opportunity. Let me also add a rider to it. World orders do not change abruptly, unless there's a major world war and so on. Otherwise, it's a gradual shift.
Yes.
So people who think that there's a new world order coming tomorrow, they are making the biggest mistake. There's no new world order which is going to come up tomorrow. What could come up tomorrow is the new regulations for the highest kind of technology. There we should try and ensure that we have a seat on the table.
Yes.
Because if we are the decision maker on the frontiers of technology, then we will know, we would be in a position to get a better deal for ourselves. That is one. Second, there is also a feeling that UN Security Council is not represented as it should be. That the representation of 1945 is passé.
Yes.
Britain and France don't deserve to be there. So this is a possibility for us to stake our claim, a claim which was ours for taking and which we missed twice, and insisted that China become. First we insisted China becomes a permanent member. When that happened in 1965, when Khrushchev offered this again, we said we'll think about it. So let us not miss that opportunity a third time.
Right.
As far as multilateral versus bilateral is concerned, I think both stand on their own. Both have their importance and both have their merit. It cannot be just bilateral, because then you're constricting your options. It has to be as wide a spectrum. After all, Vasudev Kutumbakam.
Whole world is...
That is the policy of India. Correct. So how can you just be restrictive in terms of our foreign policy choices?
Absolutely. I think so. Let's hope, we end this with the hope that, India grows stronger and its foreign policy evolves to the benefit of India, and India does become a better place day by day. Ambassador Dogra, it was a pleasure talking to you. And all those who are watching this, I'm a big fan of every book Ambassador Dogra has written. And if you are someone like me who takes interest in geopolitics and history, if you have not read his books, trust me, you are missing something. I recommend all of his books without any exception. Ambassador, it was an honor talking to you, and thank you very much. It was such an insightful session. I myself gained a lot of this.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be with you, Abhishek.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.